Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Before we dive into another incredible, amazing, and quite vulnerable episode, I just want to announce that this episode has been sponsored by my latest pride and joy, the post-show personal development program, an 8-week program I made to help bikini competitors make peace with their body, food, and new goals during an improvement season. This is something that I am so excited about, and it's really focused on helping you to build more than just a body. And we actually start the first round on November 5th, and it's going to be a small group to begin. So if you're listening before November 5th and you want to get in on what I'm calling the first callouts round, please shoot me a message, or you can look at the website link on the podcast notes page or on my Instagram bio. Otherwise, if you're listening to this way further down the road and you're just having one of those fun, awesome, I'm going to listen to all these podcast situations, but you're like, dang, I want to be a part of this, you are able to join. I am setting it up so that you'll be able to join at any point in the year or at any point in your season, because I recognize that everyone can have different timing with their off seasons or with their prep seasons. So with that being said, let's listen to this awesome episode. But of course, it is sponsored by the post-show personal development program. If you have questions about that, just shoot me a message. I'm always open to chatting and hearing what you need support with. So let's get it started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and today we'll be speaking with a dog mom of two, DB Fit Guide creator, bodybuilding.com and Bite Meals athlete, and new IFBB Bikini Pro, ex-college volleyball player and believer in all things Jesus, and professional hype woman of others, the one and only Des Scoggins. How are you doing?
I'm waiting for the crowd to be screaming for me. Where's the cue? No, I'm great. I'm so excited to be here, and wow, what a lead-in. You just made me feel like Woman of the Year. I'm excited.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad. Gotta hype you up, you know?
Thank you. Sometimes you need it, you know?
It's true. And today, to everybody listening, I'm really excited about this conversation. I've got a lot of cool things planned. But of course, before we get started, I always gotta ask, what's one thing that you think about or a ritual that you have right before your heel hits the stage?
I would say the most kind of normal thing, right? I'm probably always just pumping my glutes up because why not? And also, I think my first thing I always do before getting on stage is envision myself on the stage. I'm more of a visualizer. So I don't necessarily keep practicing my posing before I hit the stage. I'd rather think about it.
Yeah, interesting. I love that. That's definitely different. So when you're backstage, you're not likely to be the one in front of the mirror doing your routine over and over again.
No. I mean, I maybe will an hour or 45 minutes before I go on, but after a certain amount of time when we're just waiting, I just think about it, envision it, and then just keep going.
That's awesome. And I think everybody listening can probably already feel this from you, but I just want to say your energy, I feel has always been just so radiant. I seriously have never watched one of your videos or read a post or even viewed a story, without feeling actually connected to you and your vibe. So I just think that's super cool. And I want to recognize you for that, because that can be, hard to find in the industry.
No, I appreciate it. I think that it's just one of the many things that, God has instilled in me and my character, and I'm glad to be able to shine that from the inside out. So if that's all that I can do for someone is spread a little bit of positive energy, then hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I feel like we have some things in common too. I mean, I used to be a volleyball player as well. I opted out of my original college commitment in order to pursue business and passions in fitness. But something less fun that we have in common, and I'm just going to dive right into it because why not, is the experience of amenorrhea.
Yes.
So you recently made a post about this. I have made a few posts and I have been updating my audience on my own situation, but I'd love to have you just tell a little bit about your history and experience with the loss of your period.
Yeah. So when I first back up, I started on birth control in 2010. I was just thrown on it by my gynecologist after, my first visit really as like a woman. And it was just something that was very run of the norm, hey, you're 16, 15, whatever, here, take this. Like, okay, whatever. So from there on out, I obviously was having a period, but as everyone knows or should know, the periods that you do have from birth control are synthetically induced. It's not an actual natural bleed to where, to have a natural hormonal period, it's just not really happening on birth control because your body thinks that it's pregnant throughout the whole month. And then when you introduce those sugar pills, that's when your body goes, oh, I'm not. So it produces a menstrual cycle. So throughout that experience, I went through my first prep. Now fast forward to 2016, never lost my period because I was on still the pill. And fast forward then to 2017, I switched my form of birth control to an IUD. So that's an intrauterine device, and I was on Mirena. For the longest time, I started immediately feeling even more weird, which Mirena has a higher progesterone in it. So there's way more hormones pumping through your body with Mirena than any other IUD, as well as even any other pill. So I immediately saw a change in kind of my energy levels, my libido, my just natural womanly instincts. Like I just started to feel very numb and like weird. And I remember talking to my friend and asking her, like, do you struggle with this? Like, am I weird? Like, and she was like, oh, like I haven't had that. Mind you, she's off birth control. So I thought I was weird. I thought that something was wrong with me. So I ended up getting off all hormonal birth control in general, the beginning of this year, now 2018. And I had then now not had a period for a year. So once I got an IUD, I did not have a period at all. And then this past Friday, a week ago, I finally got my first natural period back. So my experience with it was very much, I was just confused, like why my dieting didn't take it away the first time, or why did my prep take it away this time? What were the underlying symptoms? I went through so many changes, not only in my body, but I moved, I underwent a surgery, I did this, so many stressors in my life. So there was really a lot of things into one. But it was definitely an experience that opened my eyes to just women's health and being able to be someone to talk about it, especially when it's a little more taboo.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're sharing your experiences and I'm also what you're going through. And then I know you mentioned that you're also doing more, I guess, in-depth understanding and knowledge and informational research on this. I think that something to touch on with this is that you were not only on birth control, but you were also going through prep. So there were multiple things going on. And to the people who are listening right now, sometimes what happens is when we stress our bodies out so much, like with a lot of reasons why girls lose their period on prep or they start having really irregular cycles, is because there's so much stress on the body that the body is trying to be like protection mode. You're not ready to have a baby or get pregnant because you're under way too much stress. And that stress can also manifest from other areas of your life aside from like physical and food kind of stresses. So I think it's great that you are actually talking about what your experience was. And I think that one thing you mentioned as well was that when you went to the OB, you were just instantly like, here, go on it. And it's so crazy. Like every time I've ever gone, they're like, you should really be on this if you're having these problems. And I'm like, no, like I personally have never been on it, but it's like, I feel that because of those things regarding how it does create a synthetic cycle, those are the things that we actually have to talk about with our doctors. And I wish that they would talk to us about them and not be like, oh, just take them. And I love that we have access to medication and things to help our body, but there's certain things where I'm like, why are we treating it like it's a new normal when it doesn't make it right?
Yeah, and I think that that's the issue, is that it's just very much brushed under the rug. And, you know, are there certain people that benefit from hormonal birth control and need it? Absolutely. But what I think is the issue with a lot of people that are struggling with infertility, with other hormonal issues, PCOS, this and that, you know, take away the hormones, get your body back humming, and, you know, don't just rely on it for prevention aspects. You know, if you don't want a baby, there's plenty of other ways to prevent it, but put your health first, because you never know if you're making a decision that could possibly inhibit you from having a child one day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big reason why I've been focused so much on getting my own back and seeing a doctor. I was given progesterone for 10 days and now I'm waiting and waiting and it didn't come. So now I have to take steps moving forward to get it back. And I don't know what that looks like, but it's about putting your health first. So I'm putting any preps on hold until I can get a regular cycle back, because it's been like 2 years. So now that we've hammered it on that, I think we'll switch gears a little bit. You also mentioned about gaining weight above like 5 to 10 pounds above stage weight. That's like such a common thing, is that a lot of competitors get caught up in this popular phrase of, I'm 5 to 10 pounds above stage weight.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Girl, you know. And I find that to be harmful if someone is trying to recoup parts of their health. You know, like I just don't think that, I think it's one of the things, again, it's become so normal. It's like a habit. It's kind of like how on Monday girls will post a picture of them on stage, like walking into the week, like it's the same.
Oh my gosh.
thing,
Same thing. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So I would love to hear your personal viewpoint or your mentality about weight gain and what it was actually like for you to focus on putting on more weight to not only help the process, but just in the aspect of fitness as well.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone, especially women, I mean, we all know that the scale is just the worst, is our worst enemy. No matter who you are, no matter how confident you are, no matter this, no matter that, you step on a scale and you see a number that is either foreign to you or one that you've seen before and you didn't think you'd see again. It can really mess you up mentally. And, you know, you always, I feel like after a prep, you do struggle with that. Doesn't matter how mentally tough you are. It doesn't matter how confident you might be in your skin one day. It's hard. It's hard to see the scale go up. For me, I was down to the smallest I'd ever been, like even my first shows ever. So I had leaned down so significantly more that it was insane to see my body at that level of body fat and at the weight I was at. I mean, I was at 9% body fat and 116 pounds. It was
wow. How tall are you?
Looking 5'7".
Dang.
Yeah, so I was tiny. It was just muscle and barely any fat. So to come off of stage, I was told I was too lean. And so at my first national competition, I started reverse dieting immediately after into my first national competition. So I did my regional competition, qualified for nationals, and had to start reverse dieting right away. So I was gaining weight throughout the rest of my shows to go pro. And I remember heading out to New Jersey. This is for my second national show. This is also the show I went pro. I headed out to New Jersey early one morning and I weighed in at 129 pounds. So that was up quite a bit from that first stage weight of 116. I remember crying, thinking that I was fat and freaking out about going on stage in the look that I had. And next day ended up going pro. Like, it was just insane, but that's where my mentality was. So from there, I started my continuous reversing, and I underwent breast augmentation. So going out of my reverse and now into a complete like sedentary lifestyle for, about 4 weeks. I was not working out, obviously. I could only walk, and my food was still being pushed up. From there, I still found myself not being able to stick to my plan because I was just bored. I was bored, and then I was hungry, and then I was recovering from surgery and this and that. So it was very tough for me to see the scale go up. And it was tough until I was able to get back in the gym. Once I got back in the gym, felt that strength come back, I was like, dude, bring on the weight. Like, I'm ready to put some mass back on this butt because I was sick and tired of looking like a flat pancake. So I finally started gaining weight. And now I'm about, I'm about right around literally 20 pounds heavier since just May. So that's where I'm sitting. And, it's hard to see it change. But when you appreciate your body for what it does and not what it looks like, that's when it becomes easier, because I'm so thankful for the energy that I have and the weight that my body can lift and the way that my body can thrive daily. And I just think of where I was 20 pounds ago and how I could barely lateral raise 5-pound weights and, squat the bar because I was just so exhausted. So that made it easier to know that I'm back in a healthy lifestyle of attaining a menstrual cycle and also mentally being able to keep my energy levels high and enjoy what I'm doing.
That is so beautiful, and I could not agree more with you at all. I think that the major key that you touched on is that it's about always retapping into what your body can do for you and what it is doing for you. And an affirmation I had been repeating to myself because I really struggled after my last show with like body image and seeing certain things changing. I was like, okay, we'll just like get back to the basics. And an affirmation I started repeating to myself was function over form, because, and I mean form by the way I look, not the way I'm.
Yes.
I figured you got that. I just want to clarify. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I think about where I was like in some of my preps of the past year, it's like that was so painful for me. There were times where it was like I couldn't sit on the floor without a pillow, or I couldn't do anything except for lift at the gym that day and do my cardio, and then I wanted to lay the rest of the day. So I was like, you know what, there's so many things to be grateful for, and weight gain is just that. There's nothing more to it, and we're in a sport where that actually can benefit us a lot when we have a really strong foundation to build upon. So what I'm looking at and focusing on a lot of is more of like the composition numbers, like, okay, well, how much muscle am I gaining with this, and what kind of shifts am I making to my metabolism, how am I responding to more food, and all of these things can then contribute to our energy and our overall sense of health. Like now I go to the gym fired up every single day because I actually have that fire. So I can totally relate to you. I think that, yeah, it's definitely a mental shift that has to be made, and it's a constant daily reminder and effort as well. But when you get there, it's worth it. Now, do you ever feel like there's a lot of pressure on you to have a certain image as a fitness influencer or pro bikini competitor?
It's so funny that you asked that because I was just thinking about that the other day. Literally actually a couple hours ago, I was at the gym and I had absolutely no makeup on. I've broken out a little bit due to period, which #blessed. And I was just thinking, I asked Wyatt, I'm like, hey, will you record this? Like, whatever. And I was just thinking, I was like, dang, I look so ugly right now. Like, oh man, this is so real me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not done up every day. My hair isn't done every day. I don't dress to the nine every day. And I just thought, I was like, man, what if my followers would see this? And I'm like, you know what? F that. Like, I don't even care, because let me tell you, 90% of my followers probably look like trash every day too. Like, that's life. Like, that is okay. And so, as I continued to like record and kind of look at myself in the mirror and notice like the way that my clothes were fitting different, or, oh wow, I haven't worn these Lululemons since prep. Like, oh, they're a little tighter, like whatever it might be. The more I've just realized, I'm like, dude, this is me. This is life. This is a part of who I am. And at the end of the day, I've really detached myself from fitness and really just want to be person. You know, I want to be someone that people can watch my YouTube videos and get a laugh from, or I want to be someone that they can read my email subscriptions and be inspired, or maybe see my workout video and try something new. But at the end of the day, I don't just want to be known for being lean, having abs, having nice hamstrings, and, you know, posting swipe videos. And I've really made that shift. So as much as I think it weighed on me at the beginning of the year of like, oh my gosh, I have to look this certain way, my ab pictures get the most likes, this and that, the more I've leaned away from that and really have just reconnected with what my purpose is and what God has put me in this position to do, and have really stepped away from the aesthetics of it and have just really gotten more into the spirituality and mentality behind how I can help people.
Yeah, that's powerful. That is really powerful. And I love that you have made that shift in your life. And it's really obvious too in your content, although I've never felt like you were similar to other influencers. I've always felt that you were really just real. And I think that that's something that people appreciate. And actually, I think that's the way, like, just through like business and in the way that people are responding to advertisements, etc., real, raw, vulnerable, like honest storytelling is what's actually getting people's attention, because no one wants the fluff anymore. It's so we're beyond that as a collective. Like, I really believe that our whole entire human society is just becoming so much more tuned in and recognizing that they just want to be seen and be real and have other people recognize that that's okay. Like, it's okay to be human. Like, imagine that. And you even said that you don't want to be just another swipe video. And I think a lot of the fitness industry just takes info and then, you know, reposts it. And it's like, everyone, and we had just touched on this, like, people are just posting the same thing. So I personally like being vulnerable through storytelling, sharing raw and real perspective from things that I post about or have been through. So I noticed you do this really well. What do you personally want to bring to your feed and followers that you feel is unique?
Well, when I was listening to a sermon a couple, maybe even days ago, and a quote that really hit me was saying that God often uses your biggest barriers to reach those around you. So that big thing that happened in your life that you might be so ashamed of is actually the thing that he's going to have you use to connect with others. And I think that's what I've really tried to tap into on my feed lately, is using those things that make me vulnerable, using those things that have been embarrassing or those things that have really hurt me, and showing others how I combated that, and making sure that it's open enough to catch their attention with, you know, obviously, yeah, like maybe a witty content line, you know, oh, I got my period back. Like, of course you want to read that. But still being able to capture the viewers and the consumers of my content with you know, a grasping attention getter, but also providing the content to back it up. You know, anyone can put how I lost 90 pounds in 10 days, but what content are you feeding in behind that? So for me, I want to engage my, you know, my viewers with my story and some real and raw in-depth things, but I want to also follow it up with real content that they can actually gain value from, and not just another kind of garbage content post. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. I think that if we're going to share what we've been through, let's teach as well. And I think that something that like stands out to me about the quote that you shared is, it's like, we tend to shy away from the things that we've been through, and we tend to pretend like they didn't happen, or at least a lot of people want to act like they didn't, or they don't want to acknowledge it because it can be embarrassing, or they might feel ashamed, or, oh, I'm not supposed to go through this. I'm this person. I coach people in this. I was like, oh, I can't experience self-loathe because I help people love themselves. Well, that's a bunch of crap, because it's a constant journey. And so I recently realized that within my own self. I'm like, wow, I'm shifting my niche within my business to help bikini competitors post show, because of all the shows I've done and have come out of the trenches that way. I'm like, wow, this whole time I thought I could never talk about it. But in reality, this was what I was supposed to do the whole time. Like, it's been right in front of me and I never saw it until I opened up about it. So I also think a lot of people shy away from discussing faith, and you do not shy away from that. You put yourself, yeah, and that's great. I know you don't. I think you have found a lot of peace in this, and you are a believer in all things Jesus, as you said. So how has this impacted your life, your brand, your opportunities in the industry? Tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate.
Well, I think, man, I'm so passionate because, I mean, dude, just look at all the stuff that God has done in my life. Like, look at, like, I could just, it makes me truly speechless because I think of where I was just, I mean, frick, like 3 years ago, even, like, and that's not a long time. I mean, 3 years ago is nothing. And I just think of where I was then and where I prayed that I would be, and, you know, where I was like kind of iffy on my relationship with God, maybe not putting full effort into it, but he still provided for me. Like, how can I not praise a God that has done all these things for me? Like, literally, I just don't understand where I would want to shove someone under the rug like that. That's like being married to the most amazing man and never posting about him. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want to hide? Why would you want to hide something like that? And so I think that showing his goodness through not only words, you know, yeah, I'll post it on my story or like post some affirmations, but what I do love to do is live like Jesus. You know, I want to serve people kindly. I want to speak kindly. I want to encourage them and show the love of God through me, with and kind of entice people to be interested in faith because of who they see I am. You know, wow, like, I want that happiness like Des. Maybe I will listen to Elevation Church this month. Or, you know, wow, I wish that I could glow like that. Maybe I'll swipe up on her next podcast she shares. Like, that's what I want to do for people. And so to be ever embarrassed of my faith, I'm not at all. You know, I tried to do a blurb on Philippians 4:13 for a company that I work under, and sadly they couldn't even use my content because they can't promote faith. And so that was probably the only run-in that I've had with, like, oh wow, like they couldn't post that, like, oh, but other than that, it really hasn't held me back at all. I mean, if anything, like, I've lost followers over it, but I think a lot of the process of kind of rebranding yourself and re-niching yourself is about losing followers, stalling out, but ultimately bringing in new that want to be there and want to be there for the right reasons.
Yeah, I just imagine like those toy race cars that you like pull it back and like winds up, and then you let it go and it races forward. And
exactly.
I think it's worth it in the end. It's 100% worth it. And at the end of the day, it's not about, I don't think it's necessarily about like the number, but like, if you're doing what you love and you're always being yourself and following your passion and promoting what you believe in, that stuff takes care of itself. And
oh yeah,
I think it's great that you are so open about your faith, and you're also just in general, you're very open about your business as well. And you've even gone into depth about the different business ventures, achievements, or things like what you just described. So I'd love to know what you think has contributed to the growth of your loyal fan base, your clientele growth, and just your overall brand.
I think that a lot of it can just be contributed to who I am and who I've stayed as, I guess. So what I mean by that is, like, just because of who I was at when I had 5K, I have remained the same exact person. If anything, I have only elevated as a person up until now. So I think with the loyalty of a lot of my peeps that have been with me since the beginning is because they know the same person since the beginning. Like, it's not like, whoa, like, who's Des? If anything, you know, they might just be like, you know, I always get messages like, Des, like, I've been here since 5K. Like, I am just so proud of all you've done. Like, I never get the, wow, like, you've changed. Like, no one has ever said that in my whole entire life. And so I think that it just goes to show, if you build a brand off of what you can sustain, in who you are, that's when there's going to be success. If you're constantly shifting and sliding and this and that, it's one thing to evolve. It's one thing to, merge into a new part of your life. But if you're just constantly being a new person every quarter of the year, no one's going to know your content, and you're not going to have that loyalty behind you and your brand, because your brand is always shifting. So it's one thing to re-niche and to bring in new demographic and maybe fluff off some of those who maybe just floated on for your free workouts. But it's another thing to completely just like vanish who your past self for a brand new self. I mean, that it's all about being true to who you are. And I think that evolution is different than complete like 180 switch.
Yeah, it lets people know like you are exactly who you say you are and who you've been, and that won't change. It's like a nice, comfortable place. It's like having family or a best friend. You know what you're gonna get.
Yep, always. Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool to just hear your perspective on that. And you even mentioned like months. I keep saying the word mentioned, and it's actually starting to bother me. So I'm sure it's like I'm like, why do I keep saying that word? But a few posts like in September after the Olympia, and I'm bringing this up because I totally connected to it, and I thought it was such a powerful share. And I don't want to butcher it, but you mentioned something about how, I said it again, how alone you felt at a time when you wanted to like fit in, like there were emotions of being widely accepted online, but when it comes to a group or an event, sometimes it would feel like a lonely road. Or like personally, I've found myself just giving so much. My followers are incredible and I love them, but if I go to an event, it's not like I'm being stopped for photos yet or invited to tons of like influencer type parties. But how did you get through the sadness? Because I'm pretty sure that was what you said you were feeling. How can you describe it for the audience, like what it's like to feel that way?
Yeah. So I think, again, like you said, a lot of people, when I think it's just so funny. And it's just so funny because a lot of people are always like, oh my gosh, Des, you must get stopped all the time. You must get asked for so many pictures. I'm like, what? Because no, sweeties, no, that does not happen. If I'm at a expo, sure, maybe more people, because that's like the fitness based community. But if I'm just at the grocery store, like no one knows who I am. Like I'm not the Pope, so yeah. I'm not that cool. But with being at the Olympia, man, I just remember how terrible I felt. And I think during this time, it was definitely a small moment where I really let my faith slip away from me. I became very self-centered and really started not taking the time to thank God for what he'd given me, but been like more, oh, well, I worked hard for this, so I deserved it. And I don't think I was purposely doing that, but I think it was just being overtaken by Instagram and being so caught up in it. And so when I was at Olympia, I left so unfulfilled because I went there truly thinking that I was hot crap. I mean, I was ready to just have an amazing weekend. And I was truly slapped in the face by God saying, yo, like you're nothing without me. And I think that coming back from that weekend, that was when I officially committed to 413 Apparel, which is health and fitness based apparel line. And it was really, it just brought it full circle. It was a crazy way that happened, but it was just immediately me saying, absolutely, I want to be a part of this team. And it really just brought me back to spending more time alone with myself, with my faith-based, devotions, or listening to a sermon, or starting out every morning, on prayer. And I think that's truly how I got through it, just because it brought me back down on my knees to ask for a direction. And without that experience, I would have kept going, and who knows where my selfishness would have led me. So it really just brought me back on path to realize, hey, I'm just as vulnerable and just as human as every single person that likes any of my pictures, that goes out of their way to message me, to go out of their way to comment on my pictures. I am no better than anyone, and I do not need to ever start acting like that. So that was kind of my experience there. I just, I thought that I was too good, straight up. I think subconsciously I was just like thinking I was going to go in there and blow things up, and instead I got blown up.
That's such a cool learning experience though, and the fact that you're sharing that is like, wow, that's really great. And I think that's what is that, like a slice of humble pie or something?
Oh, 9 billion%. Very, very, very humble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think expectations are really positive to set when they're intentional and like value based, what we believe in, our core values. But definitely like when we get caught up in things is, like you said, is when things get away from us. So it's nice that you were able to reconnect to your faith and then disconnect from selfishness or things that aren't actually you. So
yeah.
I want to also touch on life after turning pro. I know this is something you really want to discuss, and you recently became a pro. And since then, a lot has shifted in your life. I know, like moving, engagement, finding out you're going to be an aunt, just like so much more with business, affiliates, all these different things. So can you explain to us what really happens to you, and maybe in your experience talking to other women, other pros, what life is really like after that coveted pro card is obtained?
Yeah, that's so funny. I actually have like really no other friends that compete. I have like a small circle of people that I just keep in contact with via like Instagram. But in terms of like friends, I think that's like where I'm oddly just so disconnected from the bikini world. Is like I have no like I could not tell you who competes in bikini. Like it's just really something that I find passion doing in myself, and like I never signed up for it, or like I never thought I would sign up for it. So other than like Courtney King and Angelica, like I don't know anyone else. So I think that's so funny, because people are like, oh my gosh, who do you like want to be like? And I'm like, I absolutely have no clue. I'm like, I don't know. But going pro was such a freaking unbelievable thing to work for. I mean, oh my gosh, I remember finishing my Stairmaster like sessions, and I literally had maybe minutes left, I'm like dying, and I would literally go up the stairs saying PRO, PRO, because I was like, I need to finish this. I want to go pro. So I just, that amount of hard work I put in, holy smokes, it was just so adrenaline and like so hype. And then once I went pro, it was like, oh, so like what, that's it? I mean, it was like, I thought I was going to be like lifted up to the clouds, like a chariot was going to come down, like Jesus would pat me on the back, like, but none of that happened. And I was just so confused, like why people then work so hard to attain this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that, but that's it. Like I literally got a, what do you call it? A statue. What's those things?
A trophy?
A trophy. There we go. Statue. Oh my gosh. I literally got a trophy that like it broke the next day. I still don't have a plate. Like it is just a trophy of a girl in a bikini. And that was it. You just kind of left. And so it was very much like a shock to me how much it was just like, oh, okay, like bye. And now I'm planning my pro debut. I still definitely want to continue to compete as a pro at least once or twice. But it's just very, let me tell you, I'm going to be straight up because you know how I am. It's overhyped. It is so overhyped. Being pro doesn't mean anything. And, I thought that being pro and going pro would give me even more of a platform. And that wasn't in a selfish way. I was just really wanting to use that elevation to reach other people and, hopefully witness to them, or maybe they'll see my stories about, church or this or that. I was like, wow, what a great opportunity to tap into more people. But let me tell you, when I went pro, I mean, no one cared. It was like all these people watched my stories and were involved in my Instagram to watch me do it. And then once I did it, it was like, all right, bye. So
Mhm.
it's overhyped. It's very much, it's so amazing to work for. And being a pro is something a lot of people don't get. So don't get me wrong. I'm so thankful for the opportunity I had to just grind. But it is just, it straight up does not make anyone better than anyone else. Different day, different judge, different meal, it could have changed every single result in that building. So just because someone goes pro, I just don't think that it gives anyone the ability to say that they're better than someone else or consider them an amateur.
Mm, that's really, really powerful and different perspective being brought to this. I think a lot of people have wanted to say that, but usually just continue to ask, why do you really want to do this? It's like, okay, this is why they
Yeah.
really, So I appreciate that you opened up and shared that. And I know my own coaches are like, oh, like life isn't only about the pro card, right? Like what happens after that? What are you going to do with it? What, like you have it and it's another piece of paper. It just doesn't say NPC card, right? So
Yeah. Yep.
it's something that you said that I think is the biggest thing to take away from that whole it's overhyped is that you were grateful for the opportunity to grind for it and work for it. And that feeling, I think, of fulfilling, like going beyond what you even thought you could, tapping into strength and power and belief that, shoot, you maybe never have experience in your life is something that if it's rewarded or validated with a pro card, that is awesome. If it's
Yes.
not, it's still awesome
Yes.
because
Yep.
you're on that journey. It's like if if we were to take away the trophies and the cards and the medals and the status, it's like,
And the placings, I mean, no one would do
yes,
it.
yeah, a lot of people would not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I think it's the people who would step on stage and still do it because they love it, they love that
Mm-hmm.
feeling, that shines. And that again is something that leads to the end result taking care of itself. And you mentioned, it
Exactly.
may never happen. It's like winning the lotto, but it's like you can do it though, it's not impossible. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like if we use it as motivation, awesome, but also use that like constant gratitude for being able to work for it as even more like drive and fuel.
Mm-hmm. And that's not to take away from anyone who's ever gone pro. I mean, crap, you're talking to a pro right now. But it's just, I think a lot of people use it to like hurry up and throw in their IG handles or their bios. And it just because you go pro, like, does not mean your business will take off. You know what I mean? It does not mean that your Instagram will grow. It does not mean that you're going to just pop off into the abyss of like being this amazing competitor. Like, you still have to grind in every aspect of your life, and being a pro doesn't mean anything will ever be handed to you. And I think that's a lot of like miscommunication within people that do go pro is they then turn into just this straight up bikini competitor. And it's just like, you can still be human and still be a pro. You don't always have to just glamorize competitors or being a competitor. You can still very much encompass like the whole aspect of life, but still be a pro.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you shed light on that because seriously, there's so many times where it's like you just see people talking about, oh, it's this grind. This is it. It's a 24/7, which it is 24/7, but there's also other things that are happening in life that we can't just forget or let fall by the wayside. And there's
Yeah.
this perception that it's like, oh, the pros at the top, like they never let loose. They don't do anything but compete. They probably never touch like certain foods, or they probably only go to there's all these preconceived ideas based on what's being shared and put out and hyped up.
But it's like,
Yep.
we need to be very real and look at it from the perspective of being human. And if we continue to
Yes.
put like these people on a pedestal, then what are we saying about ourselves or our life
Exactly.
or our expectations and the things that we have? It's like, let's focus on what we have, what we want as our own individual. Because so many people are being dictated by what they think they should want versus what they actually want.
Yes. No, I agree. And I'm glad that I could shed light on that, but you also like understand what I was trying to say. Cause I think sometimes I just get really caught up and I'm just like, what am I even saying? So I'm glad that you
No, you were super clear. You're very clear. It's easy to talk to you and get that understanding. And I would love to end this episode or wrap it up just by knowing some of your best advice for people who are considering competing or who are currently competing and on that road to pro.
I think that my biggest piece of advice for anyone is just please, please, please make sure that you know your why and you know your wants out of competing. If you are going into it just to look good for summer or try to look good in a bikini in the future, it is just not something to mess with because competing can be very mentally taxing. And the last thing that you ever want to do is come out a worse person because you competed. So I think just really establishing your why, really understanding the complexity of the sport, getting yourself a coach that is educated and will help you make and guide you to that right decision of when to compete or if even. I think those are the three things to really just put together a great recipe for success. But you lose one of those things, whether it be a good coach, whether it be a poor mentality or the wrong reasons of starting, it can just really go wonky and really just create a bad experience. So competing for me has been the most amazing experiences ever and very, very much, personal building. But if I would have ever jumped into it for the wrong reasons, I could see where it could definitely take a drastic turn to be bad.
Wow, that is really, really good advice. And I have appreciated all of your insights, all of your points today. It's been really easy and awesome and fun talking to you. And I want everyone to be able to share with you how much they loved listening to this episode. So do you mind telling them where they can find you and connect with you?
Yes. So if you guys would like to connect with Des B and, just get some happiness in your life, which you could probably use more of, you can find me on Instagram at Des B. That is with 3 underscores. And you can also find me on YouTube. Just search Desiree Scoggin. You can find me on, everywhere. Spotify, Twitter, Pinterest, my website. I swear
Google
I have
her.
every single app. So if you just want to hop on one of my apps and, just hit me up, we can have a total blast.
Yes, that's awesome. Definitely check her out. Make sure you give her a follow and subscribe and all the above. This is something that I think I want to just touch on really, really quick. Usually I end the episode, but can you just tell everyone the story of your IG handle because I loved it?
Oh, yeah. I'll make it short. So simplified. My first Instagram handle ever, like it's the same Instagram that I've had. That's why I have so many dang posts. But I started out as DesBaby_01. So 01, that was just my volleyball number. And people called me Des Baby because it was like 2009. It was like low key, ghetto, and kind of hype. So they called me Des Baby. Then I grew up, went to college. I changed it to DesBB01. Because that's what I got on my license plate. So I wanted it to match. Then people started calling me Des B. And then I started in fitness. They were like, Des B Fit, like, ha, 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 because you be fit, LOL. So I just was like, wow, that's kind of nifty. It kind of rhymes together. So I changed my hashtag or my handle to Des B Fit 1, still keeping the 1. And then it was about 6 months into my like whole fitness Instagram. And I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Everyone puts fit in their name or like muscle or flex. And so I changed it to Des B with 3 underscores to kind of create a fill in the blank because at the end of the day, I can be whatever I want to be.
Yay! I
Yay!
love
Pop the
it.
champagne.
Exactly. That is such a cool story. I seriously just, it's so good. It's so powerful, such a lesson. And I love that you're always looking for ways to teach and help others as well. So to everybody listening, please let Des know how much you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you subscribe. And of course, if you leave a rate and a review, that's always helpful for me as well. Please check out all the episode notes so that you can click on those links and connect with Des as well. But for now, just want to say thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this podcast. Just make it awesome.